Let's have our weekly look into the future with award-winning futurist, researcher, and keynote speaker Nikolas Badminton on Canada Now. And Nick, this week, we delve into Canada's energy future. Now, first off, will it be in oil?
No. Very simply put, if we look out further into the future, we cannot rely on fossil fuels and those fuels that we burn that continually pump CO2 out into the atmosphere. We're already in a bit of a climate crisis. We're seeing more hurricanes, typhoons, floodings, droughts, wildfires, and whatever than ever before. And this is all caused by climate change over time. The IPCC is actually now saying that it's inevitable that we're going to warm up the planet. And by 2100, they're saying we should really limit that to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And Canada needs to be part of that solution. If we don't actually take steps to get off of fossil fuels and into a renewable energy future, and we start going to 2 degrees or more by 2100, we're going to lose pretty much all coral reefs. We're going to have an Arctic Ocean free of summer ice once per decade, which is absolutely terrifying because of rising sea levels. And the sea level rise is going to be 10 centimeters higher than we've ever seen before. So our future is about renewable energy. It's about us being able to take a step forward into a world where we provide clean energy, and that's going to be the new profitable industry in the future globally as well.
So would you consider, based on what you've heard and what you know, Canada to be a leader on that front, one of the leaders on that front?
Well, if we look at Canada today, then about 63% of our electricity generation domestically is actually already renewable. So that's really, really good. You know, the majority is hydroelectricity, and then we've got sources around solar and wind, and also deep geothermal energy is starting to become really popular, and there's a lot of projects happening with all of these things in Alberta, which is obviously our energy province, right? So we do still have some way to go. We still need to get off of reliance on gas and coal and oil in some provinces for our domestic energy. But, you know, oil has been a huge boon to our economy, and there's been a huge amount of people employed in that sector, especially in places like Alberta primarily, and then Quebec too. So we have to see how the change is going to affect that. But the inevitability is that the change is coming.
So let's focus on Alberta, of course. What is happening? Yeah. What is happening as far as geothermal engineering?
Yeah, so a couple of months ago, I was actually speaking in Calgary, and there was an economist from ATB Bank, and a guy called Todd Hirsch, and he started talking to me about deep geothermal energy. So if you think about drilling for oil, it's the ability to get through rock and whatever to those oil reserves. Now, imagine if we use the same kind of technology, the same kind of resources, you know, people and the energy behind the people that are going to be doing that, to actually drill into geothermal layers that we can then use to power new ways of generating electricity. It's hugely exciting. You know, Alberta could actually change its fortunes from a declining oil industry. It looks like there's going to lose about 12,500 jobs this year, to an industry that's actually booming in a renewable energy sector. They get over 330 days of sunshine a year in Alberta, and that would be really good for solar. And with the dropping battery prices, the ability to store that and even trade that with the U.S. could be really, really profitable.
So what you speak of, is that the closed-loop geothermal system?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's lots of different types of geothermal that are actually happening right now. But a couple of weeks ago, there was an article that came out on Bloomberg, and you know, the geothermal project in Alberta is this closed-loop geothermal system that's going to create renewable energy using this natural heat from the earth. If we can harness that natural heat instead of having to burn something to produce energy, then I think that's a great future for everyone. And I've been pushing this agenda, you know, for 4+ years now. I now work with the United Nations, and I've gone into the heartland of the oil country in Alberta. 4 years ago, it was a very hostile reception, and people didn't want to really recognize that this world was changing. And today, I've now got people asking me to come and speak to their groups about how they can, literally start to transfer their thinking, their innovations, their workforces to a new way of generating energy for Canada.
So this would mean more jobs. This would mean growing the economy, and this would mean protecting the environment all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really does hit that people, profit, planet sort of a triple bottom line, right? And what's really interesting is Canada's already got a standing in the global energy economy, and we're very powerful in that. And obviously, Alberta's behind that. We've got countries like China that are really going full tilt for renewable energy, massive like solar farms and battery farms as well. Inter-country supergrids where they can share energy in real time. There's something called the Asian supergrid that's being trialed right now out there. And they've got a vision of a global supergrid. So I see a world where we create abundant energy and we share that in real time, cross-border, from Canada to the US and even beyond once we actually work out how that's going to work. And that new energy economy is going to be one of the preeminent forces in geopolitical power in the world. So that's really interesting. So putting Canada on that world stage gives us a huge amount of benefit.
So how close are we to sharing power so that it can reach unserved areas? How close are we to that?
Yeah, so domestically, it's all about infrastructure and power lines and whatever. So if we actually look internationally, there are already trials happening, and as I said, in places like China, between China and Russia and whatever, where they've been able to set up huge exchanges for energy from one country to the next with real-time trading systems that allow them to, not stall it with humans in the way, and to actually provide ongoing energy. So this is already happening. It's just on a smaller scale. There are some ideas that a global energy supergrid could be here by 2050 or 2060, and that is a world that's very exciting to me. Energy gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. More people can get access to it, and it's not actually burning fossil fuels.
But what would the political pushback be on that?
Well, once you're used to something, so used to the fossil fuels industry, we've seen a lot of these wranglings in the Canadian government around pipelines and getting oil out of the ground and selling it, keeping that economic strength, right? Once you move to a new world, you've got to see how that's going to work geopolitically, technologically, and from an economic standpoint. And we just don't know exactly, what that future is going to be and how that's going to pan out. And that scares a lot of people. I always say that denial is not a river in Africa, and we can't deny that the change is coming. There's a lot of people that are putting their heads in the ground and saying, no, well, we don't have to bother with that. We're going to cancel all these green energy programs. We saw a lot of that with Doug Ford's government in Ontario, which is a terrible idea and like political suicide in the long run. I think that, we got to step into it and we got to experiment. We do have to be careful, but ultimately we have to embrace it because, in 20 years' time, the kids that are growing up at that point, they're literally going to laugh at all of us, like, that used to burn fossil fuels in our vehicles for heat and energy, and they're going to wonder what the hell we did to the earth in the process of doing that.
So we wouldn't see competition for fossil fuel sources if we have this ability to share power, as you talk about. I would think that this could actually go a long way towards world peace. Yeah,
absolutely. And you're even seeing nations like Saudi and United Arab Emirates and all these other people stepping forward into the solar world, into this renewable energy world. This world peace, that comes down to the leadership. How many wars have been fought for oil and gas? It's absolutely crazy at this point. If we can remove that reliance, if we can change the geopolitical structure of the world and understand that we've got a new way of looking, and I'm an optimist, right? I want to see that. Then, yeah, you could actually have world peace in certain respects.
So a system like this to globally share power, how vulnerable would a system like that be to hackers?
You know what? As soon as you put any device online, then you're going to be vulnerable to any external forces trying to break into it. Whether that's your cell phone, whether that's a computer at home or whatever. Within a lot of energy plants, we've seen huge challenges here, and a lot of the energy plants, they choose to be offline from an internet perspective so they can try and protect themselves. But the air gaps, which means that you have to jump from outside to inside the facility to be able to hijack it and to manipulate it, are easy to jump for certain crack teams in intelligence organizations. So we do have to double down on security, cybersecurity. These threats of disrupting service in energy, they're going to increase. Cybersecurity, general sort of information security as well, and the ability to really spot bad actors is going to be a massive business going forward in the energy industry, and that's what I advise on as well.
So you mentioned earlier on about what's going on here in Ontario. The Green On program was canceled a year ago, which provided incentives like free smart thermostats to those looking to make their homes more energy efficient. The government plans to centralize delivery of electricity conservation programs, looking to meet 94% of conservation goals and finding up to $442 million in savings in the electricity system. Nick, as far as you're concerned, has that happened at all?
It hasn't happened, and what people need to get right is the approach that we take to solving this problem. We have to be holistic. We have to understand that the consumer and how they consume electricity and optimizing that is as important as optimizing it, centrally in generation and also across the grid and distribution. You have to treat all of those things with equal importance, because that's all going to affect how this transition changes. So it's a little bit blinkered, and it's kind of, for me, I think it's political posturing to say, you know what, we're going to take it, we're going to save all this money over here, we're going to take it inside, and we're going to look for money there, and we're going to cancel, electric vehicle charging station programs here and whatever. It's just, it isn't balanced, it isn't holistic. And really, any business that's looking at energy management needs to look holistically to make a difference in this world.
Check out NikolasBadminton.com. Futurist researcher, keynote speaker Nikolas Badminton. Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Cheers.